Hey everybody, Mike Toy with Bonsai Boise. This is a new type of ficus to me. It was mislabeled at a nursery recently, a couple months ago. It was labeled as a Ficus benjamina too little, and I knew right off the bat it was not a too little. It just looked different and weird, and I have a too little, and I just know the difference. So I picked it up. This is what it looks like. It is a variety of Ficus benjamina, but it's called a Wiandi. And even that took me some time. At first I thought it was a Ficus benjamina nataja. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Let me show you the difference in the three. So on the left, the tall one there is just a regular Ficus benjamina, just a normal, average Ficus benjamina. You can see the branches are typically straight, except for I wired this one, so it's different. But you can see the smaller branches there, they just grow straight. This is a Wiandi right here. It's the cutting that I just took. It's sort of contorted and wavy and zigzaggy. The leaves are slightly different. It takes a little more looking at it to figure it out, but they're slightly more narrow and long. And this is what a too little leaf looks like. So very different. The leaves are curly on a too little leaf, and they're, like the name implies, very little. Like noticeably smaller. And then here's something that I just grabbed a few pictures off the internet. The Wiandi in the middle, it's almost like the branches don't ever grow straight. If you look from one node to the next, it moves direction all on its own every time, whereas the Ficus benjamina will just continue growing straight pretty much as long as you let it. And then when you cut a branch, then it goes in a different direction. But these Wiandis, as you can tell, they change directions every time they hit a new node or leaf set. So that was kind of cool. Took a cut there, and I did root this. So there you can see I marked it as a nataja, because that's what I thought it was at first when I brought it home. I hadn't even heard of a Wiandi before this. After talking to a few people and doing just a little bit of basic internet research, I figured out that they came from a hybrid somewhere in Holland, I guess. A greenhouse in Holland came up with this. That's kind of a weird feature. But as I dig into this, I'm going to bonsai this up. And it turns out there are two of them in the pot. So one I'll just put into a plastic training pot. The other I'll put into a bonsai pot. And I'll talk about some of the differences, some of the other differences that I've noticed along the way with this. One thing I noticed, and I also have heard from people, is that you really can't wire a Wiandi. The branches will just snap, which I believe. Here's the pot I'm going with. And then I just got a couple of little plastic pots there for whatever else comes up. The bark seems to be about the same as a Ficus benjamina so far. But I could tell just when I made that very first cut, it's hard to explain what it feels like, but it indicated to me that, yeah, this type of tree would likely snap if you tried to wire it. It's kind of like it has a little bit of give and flexibility to it at first. You feel it kind of bend a little bit, but then it hits this point where it just kind of breaks. Here's what the roots look like. Kind of looks like a carrot. Big old taproot. So we'll get rid of the taproot. The roots also seem, and it could just be this particular tree, it may not be a species thing, I don't know yet, but they seem more, the roots seem more wiry. There's not a ton of little fine feeder roots. And I didn't see any big potato roots either, yet at least. And again, it could just be this particular tree, because I have a lot of Ficus benjaminas, and sometimes they do it and sometimes they don't, so it's kind of hard to say. But as this one goes along, I'm actually kind of lucking out with the shape of it. The way it's twisting around and contorting and zigzagging around. I kind of like the direction that it's headed already. Here's my soil mix. Just using a mix of perlite, pumice, volcanic rock, some academia, which I'm getting away from the academia as of recently, especially for tropical trees, because I don't think tropical trees need acidity in their soil. They seem to do fine with it, but I don't think it's necessary, especially for the price of academia. But the way that I'm leaning so far for a style on this is just kind of what I would call a natural S shape. Most of those S-shaped bonsai trees are a result of wiring, where they either put wire on it and then just shape it like an S, or they'll put a couple of sticks in there and then they wire it to the stick to give it a different bend. This is just naturally doing it. And if I can continue with this natural course that it's on, I might be able to achieve the same thing without any wiring at all. So that's my hope. So I can get it all potted up, work the soil into the roots, soak the heck out of it. I usually soak them until it runs clear out of the bottom. You can kind of see the water a little bit cloudy and dirty. And that's why I soak the heck out of it. Here was tree number 2 that was in that pot. It had that weird kind of, I don't even know the shape. It was like one trunk went up into 2 trunks and then the 2 trunks sort of curved back around to each other. So I got rid of one of them. And I gotta say, I have no immediate plan on what to do with this, style-wise. No idea. So for now, I'll just let it grow. Something will come to me at some point, or it'll just happen on its own. Got it all potted up there. This was back in January, by the way, of 2025. It is now the end of March 2025, so I'll show you some updates and what these guys look like now. One other little one that had some roots to it, so we'll pot him up too. Why not? Back to the main one, my hopeful S-shape Wiandi. By the way, I would love to hear any experience that anyone has with these Wiandis. Would love to hear it. It's a new variety. Ficus benjaminas are not new to me, but the Wiandi variety is new to me. Like I said, I'd never even heard of it before this, so would love to learn more. I did find one website on the internet. I can't speak to its validity. I don't know anything about it. I just found it on the internet, but I'll put a link to that website in the description so that you can read what I read. It had some pretty good information, I thought. That's how they ended that day. Fast forward a month to February, end of February, and it's growing out already. It's brand new growth, kind of weak looking, but hey, it's new growth. That's good. That one leaf down there, I love the spot that the leaf is, but I don't love the direction the leaf is facing. So to kind of trick it into hopefully back budding or sprouting a branch, I cut the leaf in half. And that sometimes does the trick. But look at that. That S shape is starting to kind of form on its own already. That worked out well. It is kind of weak growth. Like I said, it's, February. So it's not super strong yet. You can tell by the long internodes there that's typical of weak wintertime growth. So I like the direction we're going with it. Now fast forward another month, March. I, at this point, realized it is not a Natasha, it's a Wiandi. But you can see they've grown out a little bit more and better. A little healthier looking growth now. So that's good. I'm going to try to control the growth on this one. Newer bonsai trees or smaller bonsai trees, sometimes I don't really do much early trimming. I kind of let it grow out. But this one, since we're going for a specific style, that S shape, I'm going to try to control the growth a little bit more. So I'm going to trim it up lightly. Some of these branches I'm not so sure about. And this is the one that I have no plan for yet. I'm not sure what to do with this guy. It's got that first branch that just does a 90-degree turn. I don't know what I'm going for here. Get rid of that little knobby. So I guess we'll kind of let it go. But there's an example of what I mean when I cut the leaf in half. If I cut the leaf off entirely, I doubt a branch would grow there. If I leave the leaf alone, a branch might someday grow. But if I cut that leaf in half, that additional energy's got to go somewhere, and it usually sprouts a new branch. As for the main tree here, since wiring doesn't really work with Wiandis, I'm going to try some guy wires. Just for some, what I'll call gentle guidance. So I just stick a wire into the pot. It's not anchored onto anything, just stuck it in there. The branches are pretty small and weak, so it shouldn't take much. Keep that main S-shaped theme going. Trim these other branches down. Hopefully that will channel the energy in the way I want it to go. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. It's hard to say why. Hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with it with that S shape there. A couple more guy wires here. Kind of like that. Gotta make a few decisions on some of these branches. And like I mentioned, this still is kind of a new species for me, so I'm figuring it out as I go. Don't want to get too bold with it until I know how they react to some of this stuff. I had to wrestle with that for like 5 minutes off camera. It took me a while. Kept pulling out of the pot. But anyways, this is pretty much where I left this for now. So I like the direction it's going. I'm pretty optimistic about it. I did take a bunch of cuttings from this from the day that I first potted it up. I just stuck them all in some water, and I probably got 5 or 6 decent little cuttings out of it. So more on those later. But for now, this is where we leave it. This is the S-shape Ficus benjamina Wiandi. Would love to hear any comments and experience you guys have. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your day.